Star Trek's 2009 movie almost added a second TOS actor after Leonard Nimoy, but it would have broken the Kelvin timeline. J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek movie served as a daring reboot of the iconic franchise, one that balanced reinvention with reverence. By threading in Leonard Nimoy's Spock Prime, the film cleverly created an alternate reality, the Kelvin timeline, sidestepping continuity snarls while paying homage to what came before. But what many fans don't know is that Star Trek 2009 almost included a second actor from the original series TOS, and had that happen, it could have completely undermined the very foundation of the Kelvin timeline itself. While Nimoy's involvement provided emotional weight and legitimacy to the reboot, producers briefly considered involving William Shatner, Captain James T. Kirk himself. The idea was tantalizing, but ultimately rejected. And for good reason. As iconic as Shatner's Kirk is, his appearance would have irreparably disrupted the delicate narrative balance the 2009 film struck. Here's why including Shatner could have broken everything the Kelvin timeline tried to build. The Nimoy factor. Anchoring the past to the future. Leonard Nimoy's portrayal of Spock Prime was the emotional core of Star Trek 2009. His presence was not just a nostalgic cameo, it was essential to the plot. His Spock, flung back in time through the red matter black hole, was the literal bridge between the Prime and Kelvin timelines. His role explained the divergence in events, from the destruction of the USS Kelvin to the altered fates of Kirk, Spock, and Vulcan. Nimoy's presence worked because Spock's long lifespan and Vulcan physiology made it plausible for an older version of the character to still be alive in the 24th century. His mentorship of young Spock added emotional depth, and his wisdom became the spiritual compass of the new universe. Now imagine that same structure, but with William Shatner appearing as a living, breathing version of Kirk. Shatner's Kirk was already dead. The biggest problem with adding William Shatner wasn't just screen time or narrative weight, it was canon. Shatner's version of James T. Kirk died in Star Trek Generations 1994, sacrificing himself on Veridian 3 to save millions. His death was definitive, meaningful, and, according to the timeline, irreversible. To insert a living Shatner Kirk into Star Trek 2009 would have meant either resurrecting a dead character without explanation or engaging in convoluted time travel gymnastics. That would have fundamentally undermined the clean reboot Abrams was trying to build. Unlike comic books or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Trek has traditionally treated death with solemnity, especially the deaths of major characters like Kirk. Bringing Kirk back would have muddled the message of the film and confused audiences. If Kirk can come back, why not Picard, or Data, or Janeway? The elegant simplicity of Nimoy's cameo would have been lost in a sea of plot contrivances. The deleted scene that never was. Abrams and writers Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman did briefly consider including a Shatner scene. A version of it was even written. In this proposed sequence, Spock Prime would have given young Spock a holographic message from the older Kirk, a kind of heartfelt send-off from the Prime timeline. It would have been deeply emotional and possibly beautiful. In this message, Kirk would speak to his friend Spock one last time, offering wisdom, friendship, and a goodbye. It would have functioned as a spiritual baton pass, allowing Kirk to exist in some form without violating the canon of his death. But Abrams ultimately scrapped the idea. Why? Because a holographic Kirk felt too much like cheating. It lacked narrative justification and leaned heavily on nostalgia rather than progressing the story. It risked turning the 2009 reboot into a eulogy rather than a fresh start. The Kelvin timeline's fragile integrity. The success of Star Trek 2009 was built on its ability to honor canon while establishing a new sandbox. The Kelvin timeline allowed for characters like Kirk, Spock, Uhura, and McCoy to be reborn, but differently. It created tension and drama because fans didn't know what would happen next. Vulcan was destroyed. Amanda Grayson died. Pike lived longer. Everything was up for grabs. Adding another TOS-era actor would have risked breaking the spell. It would have drawn attention away from the young cast, particularly Chris Pine's energetic Kirk, and shifted the focus back to the past. The reboot worked because it was not a reunion tour. It was a bold retelling. Had Shatner been added, even as a hologram, audiences would have spent more time comparing him to Pine's version, rather than accepting the new portrayal on its own merits. What could have been versus what should have been?